The Empire stretched across 1,000 star systems. From the glowing rings of Velthar to the iron moons of Carrion, its banners hung everywhere. The Emperor's word was law, his fleets unmatched. No one dared to challenge his power. The galaxy was quiet, until one night the silence changed. Deep in Sector 19, a routine patrol ship detected something strange. It was not large, not small, just unknown. It came from a dead system that no one had visited for ages, a place marked human territory, extinct. The scanners tried to read its signature but failed. It had no engine trail, no heat source, no transmissions. It was moving fast but completely silent. Commander Rahl of the patrol ship leaned forward. "What is that thing?" he asked. The operator shook her head. "No life readings, sir. No response to hails. It's cold." The commander sent a signal to High Command. Within hours, the Empire's greatest warships were dispatched. 100 heavy cruisers surrounded the unidentified craft. The formation gleamed like a wall of fire under the red sun. "Unknown vessel," the Imperial flagship broadcast. "Identify yourself immediately." No answer. The ship drifted, silent and dark, like a ghost from another time. Its surface was black metal, scorched but smooth, with strange marks burned into the hull, marks no one recognized. The order was given. "Lock weapons! Prepare to fire!" Before they could launch a single shot, every light on the fleet flickered. Power readings dropped to 0. Engines died. Communications went black. The crew shouted in panic, as screens turned to static, then the stars themselves seemed to fade. One by one, the Empire's ships vanished from radar. No explosions, no debris. They simply ceased to exist. The fleet's last transmission echoed through the void. "It's not attacking. It's absorbing us." When the signal reached Imperial Command, confusion spread. No one believed it. The Emperor himself dismissed the report as a sensor malfunction. "No ship can do that," he said. "Send another fleet." A second fleet went out, then a third. None returned. Across the Empire, people began whispering. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a ghost. But the oldest among them, those who still remembered fragments of forbidden stories, said something far more terrifying. They said it was human. The word human had been erased from history long ago. Children were taught that humanity was a failed species, wiped out after the Great Collapse 10,000 years ago. The Empire had risen from their ashes, taking their worlds, their technology, and their place in the stars. And yet this ship, this silent thing, came from the coordinates once called Earth. Days turned into weeks. The mysterious vessel continued to move deeper into Imperial space. Every system it passed through went dark. Stations lost contact. Trade routes went silent. Even navigational satellites vanished. Panic began to grow. The Empire's citizens demanded answers. The Emperor promised safety, declaring the object a minor threat. But fear had already spread like fire. In a mining colony on Vora Prime, workers looked up one night and saw the sky twist. A bright tear opened, and from it came the dark shape, huge and slow. Children cried. The ground shook. The air froze. The miners tried to contact the defense grid. There was no response. Then, without warning, every light in the colony turned off. For 3 full minutes, nothing existed but silence. When the power returned, the ship was gone. So was half the colony. Only one message was found on the remaining data log. They have returned. Back on the capital world, the Imperial Council gathered in secret. "We must identify it," said Lord General Theron. "If it is human, it cannot be alone." The Emperor frowned. "Humans are extinct. There are no humans. But what if they were not?" Another councillor whispered. "What if they waited? What if they built something greater?" The Emperor stood and turned toward the great star map glowing before them. The unknown ship's path was now heading straight for the Imperial homeworld. He clenched his fists. "Then we will remind them who rules this galaxy." Every ship in orbit was ordered to prepare for war. The Empire had faced rebels, pirates, alien alliances, but never fear. Yet now, for the first time in centuries, every citizen could feel it. Far across the void, in the heart of the dead sector, something massive stirred. Behind the silent ship, faint lights began to appear, small at first, like stars blinking to life. Then hundreds, then thousands. Sensors on the edge of the Empire detected multiple objects forming out of empty space. All bore the same shape. All was silent. A message appeared on every Imperial communication channel in a language no one had seen in 10,000 years. 3 words glowed in white against the black screen. "The fleet returns." Technicians panicked. Commander shouted. The Emperor demanded it be translated. "It's old Terran," an archivist whispered. "It means humanity." And just like that, the first human ship disappeared from Imperial scanners. Not destroyed, not gone, just unseen. The systems it had crossed were empty now. No planets, no stars, no signs of life. Reports came from nearby sectors that whole regions of space had gone dark. Travelers described seeing shadows moving between the stars. Entire fleets vanished mid-flight. No one understood how. No one knew why. But across the Empire, one truth began to take hold. The humans had not died. They had waited. And now they were coming home. Across the galaxy, panic turned into whispers, and whispers turned into fear. Every world under the Empire's control had heard of it now. The dark ship that swallowed fleets and left only silence behind. Some said it was a ghost weapon. Others said it was a god. But those who remembered the ancient stories knew the truth. The name that had been buried under 10,000 years of lies was now being spoken again. Quietly, fearfully, human. The Emperor sat in his high chamber, surrounded by his council of war. Holographic screens floated around them, each one showing static or half-broken transmissions. Nothing clear, nothing complete. Ships gone. Colonies gone. Stars dimmed. "We have lost contact with 12 sectors," said Lord Admiral Kess. His voice trembled. "Not destroyed, Your Majesty. Lost, as if space itself vanished." The Emperor's eyes were cold. "And the ship?" "No readings since the fall of Vora Prime. But long-range sensors picked up movement from the same sector. Hundreds of signatures." He turned. "Hundreds?" "Yes, Your Majesty. All identical in design. All carrying the same unknown symbol." The Emperor's face hardened. "Show it!" The hologram flickered, revealing a black insignia burned into a metallic hull. It was simple, a circular crest surrounding an ancient mark. The Emperor stared, silent for a long time. One of the younger officers spoke up nervously. "Sir, that emblem matches something from the old records. From before the Great Collapse. It's Terran." The word hit the room like thunder. For generations, the Empire had erased that name. Schools never taught it. Archives were purged. Only the old drifters in the outer colonies sometimes muttered about it when drunk, about a race that once ruled everything and vanished after burning the stars themselves. Now that name had returned. The Emperor rose slowly. "Prepare the archive keepers. I want every record from before the Empire's founding brought to me. Now!" Within hours, data vaults sealed for centuries were opened. Dusty crystals and locked databanks began to glow again. What they found changed everything. They found history rewritten by fear. Humans had not died in war. They had vanished by choice. Before the collapse, before the chaos, they had built something called Project Ascendant. It was said to be their final act, a project meant to rewrite the limits of existence. Then they disappeared, leaving behind a warning that no one ever understood. Do not follow us. Do not claim our worlds. The Empire had done both. When the Emperor read those words, his voice faltered for the first time in his reign. He looked at his advisors, and they saw something they had never seen before: doubt. What kind of beings could vanish from the universe? "And then return like this?" he whispered. Outside, chaos continued. On the outer colonies, strange lights began appearing in the sky. Planets would lose power for days, then regain it suddenly, their systems showing strange symbols across their screens. Messages in an ancient language, simple phrases repeating endlessly, "Do you remember?" "We do. On one remote moon, a farmer found a black piece of metal buried in his fields. When he touched it, he saw visions of burning cities, ancient battles, and human faces staring through fire. When he told his neighbors, they laughed. until the sky opened that night and a single beam of light erased the entire colony from the map. Back in the capital, scientists tried to study the energy coming from the silent ships. They could not. Their instruments overloaded instantly. Whatever powered those vessels, it was not fusion, antimatter, or any known science. It bends the fabric of reality, one researcher whispered, before his lab exploded into white light. Every day, more ships appeared. The Empire's great armadas gathered near the capital, thousands of vessels lined up like a steel wall against the black void. They were ready to defend the throne world at any cost, but the truth was clear. No one knew what they were fighting. Then one night the human ship arrived, not near the capital, but above the Emperor's own palace. It did not fire, it did not speak. It simply appeared, massive, silent, and terrifyingly close. Its shadow covered the royal city completely. Citizens screamed. Soldiers ran. The Emperor himself watched from the balcony as the sky turned dark. A deep hum filled the air, a vibration that made the ground tremble. Then every screen, every communicator, every piece of technology in the Empire came alive. A voice echoed across every channel, deep and calm, speaking in perfect imperial language. You took what was ours. You called it peace. We call it unfinished business. Every soldier froze. Every city went silent. Then the voice changed. It became older, colder, as if it had come from a memory itself. We remember the empire that rose from our graves. We remember the chains placed on our children. We remember your flag over our ashes. Now you will remember us. The transmission ended. The human ship vanished again without a trace. The Emperor stood alone in his hall. He turned to his advisors. We must destroy them. But deep down, he already knew it was impossible, because what could destroy a species that had learned to hide within the fabric of reality itself? Later that night, the Emperor dreamed. In his dream, he saw Earth, green, blue, and alive. Then he saw it burn. He saw humans walking through fire and smiling as if the flames could not touch them. He awoke to find the palace trembling. The fleet in orbit had vanished. No wreckage, no signals, only silence. In the skies above, new constellations began to appear. Some believed they were stars. Others swore they were ships, and across the Empire people began whispering a new phrase, words taken from the old files recovered by the Emperor's scientists. The fleet returns. Those words spread faster than any law. They became a prayer, a curse, and a promise. The Empire had taken everything from humanity once. Now humanity had come back to take everything from them, and the worst part, they hadn't even started fighting yet. When the human fleet finally appeared, it was not like a storm. It was like a sunrise. Quiet, slow, and unstoppable. The first to see it were the astronomers on the edgeworld of Kareth. They watched as dozens of glowing objects emerged from folds in space. But when they tried to measure them, their instruments broke. The energy was too pure, too strange, as if the ships were made of light and shadow at once. Each ship moved without sound, without heat, and yet every imperial sensor in the sector screamed with warnings. Gravity fields twisted. Moons shifted out of orbit. The Empire sent fleets to intercept, but when those fleets arrived, there was nothing there, only silence. Soon after, the capital's skies began to darken. The Emperor stood on his balcony, staring at the horizon. "They are here," he said quietly. Above him, the clouds split apart, and one enormous shape emerged from the void. It was the same ship that had haunted the Empire for weeks, now descending with slow, terrible grace. Behind it came hundreds more, each identical, each carrying that same mark, the old human insignia of Earth Command. The sight was impossible. The Empire's fleet formed a wall around the planet, 1,000,000 cannons aimed at the invaders. The order was simple: fire on sight. When the first command rang out, the skies erupted in light. Beams of plasma, antimatter missiles, railguns, all fired at once. The night turned into fire. For a moment, the human ships disappeared behind the explosions. People cheered from the streets below, then the smoke cleared. The human fleet was still there, unmoved, untouched. And then something terrifying happened. The Imperial ships that had fired began to flicker. One by one they froze in mid-space. The light from their engines died. Their cannons melted into their hulls like wax. On the capital world, screens across the planet showed the same scene. Hundreds of warships floating like statues, lifeless, and then, all at once, every signal went silent. Not a sound, not a transmission. The universe seemed to hold its breath. In that silence, a sound emerged, soft, distant, but unmistakable. It was a heartbeat. The Emperor looked up, hearing it echo from the sky. The citizens below covered their ears as the sound grew louder, deeper, stronger, until it felt like the planet itself was alive and afraid. And then, from the largest ship, a voice spoke. "We asked to be left alone. You built empires on our bones." The voice was human, ancient, calm, and full of sorrow. "You called us extinct, but extinction is mercy. We chose memory instead." All across the galaxy, every communicator, every speaker, every star beacon played the same words. People dropped to their knees. Soldiers stopped fighting. The Emperor's hands shook as he whispered, "What do they want?" The voice answered as if it had heard him. "We do not want your worlds. We do not want your throne. We want you to remember who taught you to reach the stars." A wave of light spread from the fleet. It passed through everything, ships, satellites, cities. It did not destroy, but it showed. Every Imperial citizen saw flashes of another time, blue oceans, green fields, children laughing beneath a yellow sun. They saw Earth. Then came the screams. The images changed, cities burning, skies red, millions dying. The Empire's people realized they were seeing the day humanity fell. And yet, in that destruction, the humans did not die. They walked through fire. They stepped into the heart of light itself, and when the flames faded, they were gone. The voice spoke again. "You called it myth. You called it failure. But it was evolution." The wave faded. The sky turned black again. The human fleet remained motionless. Then, without warning, the stars began to vanish. One by one, constellations disappeared. Imperial astronomers screamed that entire sectors were going dark. Not destroyed, but erased, as if rewritten out of existence. The Emperor shouted to his generals, "Retreat! Call back every fleet!" But there was nowhere left to retreat to. Every route the Empire had built, every station, every beacon, it was all gone. The map of the galaxy was shrinking, swallowed by the spreading darkness. Within hours, half the Empire's territory had vanished. Only one message kept repeating on the remaining screens: "The day of silence has come." On the ground, the citizens gathered in temples, streets, and bunkers. Some prayed to the Emperor, others prayed to the humans. On the 30th hour, the human fleet moved again. Slowly, silently, the ships aligned into a vast formation above the capital world. The sight was beautiful and terrifying, like a crown made of stars. The Emperor stared at them, unable to look away. "If this is vengeance," he whispered, "then let it end." But the humans did not attack. Instead, a single beam of white light descended from the lead ship. It touched the Emperor's palace and spread across the planet. Everywhere it passed, machines stopped, weapons deactivated, and power grids fell silent. The Empire's technology, the very foundation of its power, was gone. Yet no one was killed. No city destroyed. Only silence remained. When the beam vanished, the fleet disappeared with it. No traces, no debris, no sound. The stars returned. The Emperor stood in the ruins of his powerless palace. His generals were gone. His armies were blind. For the first time in history, the Empire had fallen, not through war, but through silence. Far beyond the galaxy, deep within the void, the human ships reappeared. Their lights shimmered once more before fading into darkness. They left behind no demands, no rulers, no message, only the memory of what had happened, and in the endless quiet that followed. The galaxy finally understood. The humans had not come to conquer. They had come to remind everyone who had once owned the stars. When dawn rose over the imperial capital, there were no songs, no broadcasts, and no light. The once brilliant cities that stretched across continents stood quiet, dark as tombs. The emperor walked through the empty halls of his palace, hearing only the echo of his footsteps. Outside, the sky was a soft grey. The stars had not returned. He tried to summon his guards, but no one came. Every communicator was dead. Every system was cold. The Empire, once a machine of billions, had stopped breathing. He stepped to the balcony where he once gave speeches to entire worlds. Now he saw the capital from above. Ships fallen from the sky, power plants frozen mid-glow, streets covered in mist. A single phrase still flickered on the walls of the palace. Written by trembling hands during the night, "The fleet returns." The emperor whispered the words again and again, as if they might give him answers. Then a faint hum reached his ears. It came not from machines, but from the air itself. He looked up. Above the clouds, the silhouette of one human ship still hovered in orbit, motionless, watching. Its lights glowed softly, almost peaceful. It made no threats, no gestures. It simply existed. For days it stayed there, unmoving. The Empire's remaining worlds sent desperate transmissions begging for orders. None were answered. They were alone, scattered, terrified. On distant planets, strange things began to happen. Oceans that once boiled under imperial mining rigs turned calm again. Forests started to regrow. Cities built on dead soil began to crumble and sink beneath vines. It was as if the universe itself was cleaning away everything the Empire had built. Scholars, the few who still had working archives, tried to understand what had happened. Some believed the humans had mastered time, that their ships carried the power to reverse creation. Others said it was punishment, that humanity had become something beyond flesh, a force that corrected the balance of existence. The emperor sat alone in his throne room, surrounded by ancient records from the archives. On one cracked tablet, he found an old fragment written in the language of Earth. "We build not to conquer, but to endure. When the stars forget us, we will remind them." He stared at those words for hours. He finally understood. Humanity had not sought revenge. They had come to erase memory, their own and the Empire's. They wanted to undo the story that had been written over their graves. That night, the Emperor dreamed again. In his dream, he saw the human fleet drifting through the dark, but this time there were no weapons, no anger. The ships looked like moving temples, glowing softly with the light of ancient cities. Inside them, shadows of people walked quietly, carrying torches through endless halls. He saw children laughing, scientists building suns, soldiers lowering their weapons. Then he saw the same people step into a blinding light and vanish. When he awoke, the palace was shaking. The vinyl transmission from the Imperial Observatory came through before the systems died completely. The fleet has begun to move again. They are not leaving. They are spreading. The Emperor climbed to the highest tower and looked up. The single human ship had split into hundreds, maybe thousands. They drifted outward in perfect silence, forming a spiral pattern that stretched across the sky. The formation glowed brighter than any star, and then, one by one, each ship vanished, leaving trails of light behind, like tears across the universe. A few seconds later, the Emperor's world began to dissolve, not explode. Not burn, dissolve. The mountains turned transparent. The air shimmered. The very atoms of matter seemed to forget how to exist. And through the fading light, he heard the same voice that had haunted his dreams. "The cycle ends where it began." The Emperor fell to his knees. "Who are you?" he whispered. The voice answered softly. "We are what remains of the ones you called human. We are memory. We are silence. We are home." Then the palace, the city, the world, all of it was gone. Only the soft hum of the void remained. In the centuries that followed, other civilizations rose and fell across the stars. They found fragments of the Empire, abandoned stations, empty planets, hollow moons. But wherever they searched, they found the same symbol carved into stone, etched into steel, or burned into the core of dead suns, the mark of Earth. And beneath it, A message written in the old human tongue: humanity does not conquer. Humanity remembers. No one ever found the human fleet again. Some said they ascended beyond the physical universe into the fabric of light itself. Others believed they were still out there, hidden between time and gravity, watching. But strange stories began to circulate. Merchant ships claimed to hear faint voices on their radio bands, whispers that sounded like Earth songs, songs no one alive could possibly know. Explorers spoke of distant lights that moved like fleets, visible only for a moment before fading into black, and on forgotten worlds. Travelers sometimes reported meeting figures who looked human, too human, living in places where no one should survive. When asked where they came from, they only smiled and said, home. The galaxy learned to live quietly after that. Empires no longer tried to conquer the stars. They mapped fewer worlds. They spoke with more humility. Every year, on the anniversary of the Day of Silence, the descendants of those who survived looked up at the night sky and whispered the same words their ancestors had feared. The fleet returns, but this time the words carried no terror. They carried hope, because somewhere, far beyond the known edge of the galaxy, a single blue light still shone in the darkness, a light shaped like a planet no one had seen for 10,000 years. Earth, still waiting, still remembering.